Secondary season is upon us. Hey guys, I hope you're doing great. I wanted to make a video talking about my biggest tips for secondaries, so let's get into it. Now, hopefully by this point, you guys submitted your AMCAS primary application already, and you are just in the process of filling out your secondaries while you're waiting for your primary to come back verified. So my first tip, pre-write your secondaries. Now, you can find most schools' secondary prompts online. All you have to look at is Student Doctor Network, and they have a section on there where it's going to show every single medical school with all of their secondaries. And the secondaries don't really change from year to year. I would say 95% of medical schools each year keep the same secondary. The only change that's ever going to happen with a secondary really is them just removing one question, adding one question, or it could be like more than one question getting removed. But again, they're just slight changes. Very rarely will a medical school completely revamp their secondary prompts. Look up the secondaries and get started immediately. You want your application to be completed at the medical school as soon as possible. So what does that mean? We're talking like your primary is verified, your AMCAS is in there, your secondaries are in there, you've paid the fee, everything's done, and then the school on their portal or whatever is just going to say your application is complete. Low battery, are you fucking... Okay, we're back. Once you find those secondaries on SDN, start writing them right away. And my biggest tip would probably be have about 5 or so pre-written essays for the medical school's most commonly asked questions. So I'm talking about things like a challenge essay, a unique contribution to our incoming class, why us, tell me about yourself, things like that. I really recommend writing those in advance and saving them on your computer in like separate Word documents or Notepad. Here's what I did. So looking here, you can see that I have all of these essays written out in advance. So when it came down to fill out the secondary for each school, all I did was copy and paste it into the school's portal, or actually I went on a separate Word document, edited it, and then put it on the school's portal, and then save the Word document separately. So yeah, I copied and pasted my template, and then just depending on the school, and then depending on what was specifically asked in the prompt, or any other extra information I needed to add, I just cut and paste words here and there and just switched it up a little bit, but it's 99% the same. For all these essays, they all kind of ask the same thing with some minor changes here and there. So get those pre-written essays into your computer saved somewhere so that all you have to do when you run into the same questions over and over and over again is just to copy and paste it into a separate Word document, edit it up so that you're answering the prompt properly and that it looks good, and then from there put it into the school secondary portal and you're done. It saves you so much time and it keeps you consistent, and it's the best way to go about it and get your application in as soon as possible because you're not taking too long in the secondaries. And also another thing when you're doing this, and kind of a tip for secondaries in general, don't submit them right away, because if you're doing them last minute and submitting them right away and kind of like in the same day in the same session, you're going to be very prone to making errors. And my recommendation would probably be just to wait a day or two, or maybe even more, mull over them a little bit, look at it in the future with an extra pair of, what do they say, a fresh set of eyes, and you'll be catching errors here and there. You might look at your secondary essay and be like, hey, this shit is ass, and you need to start from scratch. So if you are submitting it right away, you might fall into the trap of submitting, bad secondary essay answers. In my case, I saw a lot of bad writing when I was doing secondaries, and it saved me by waiting a little bit, because I was like, wow, I looked over my essay 10 times in that session, and I only saw the error when I looked at it a day or two later. So as for specific content in your secondaries, there's not much I can say here, because I think med school writing in general is very personal, and it kind of ties into what medical schools, or basically how they are trying to build their class. Medical schools are trying to build a diverse class, and there's no one size fits all formula for, applying to med school, or just not even applying to med school, but writing in general, because med schools are trying to build a diverse class, and the whole point is to not have a one-size-fits-all formula for, your medical school writing or applying in general. So I can't tell you exactly what to put in your secondary essay. All I can tell you is this one piece of advice, and it's just kind of going to be a piece of advice that I'm going to be talking about a lot, and that's just going to be, tell your story, be yourself. That's pretty much it. There's one piece of advice I could give for your writing, whether it be from your secondary or your primary. Just tell your story, be yourself, and go from there. People online like Dr. Gray and other influential pre-med like resources giving people, I guess is the term, they kind of say the same thing. And I agree with it. And going along that sort of line, I would say do not try to sell yourself in the secondary. So what do I mean by that? When you are writing your secondaries, you want to talk about yourself authentically and not talk in a way that you think the medical school wants to hear, or talking in a way that sounds like, like a perfect formula, saying just the right things to get a medical school acceptance that you think the admissions committee is going to like. So like, what's an example of that? So if they ask you a question about something and then you start talking about like your resume, I did this many things, I have this unique skill that's going to make me a great doctor, that's bad. It can be bad if you write about it in like a robotic way and try to sell yourself in flex. Instead, if you have something that you think is unique or want to write about, you want to, it's going to be cliche, but tell a story. And you're going to hear this a lot in advice circles online, is telling stories. And a lot of people say, yeah, telling a story is cliche though, but I think it is the best way to capture the reader's attention, show who you are, and really let the admissions committee know who you are as a person, so that when they read your application, they say, I really like this about this person. When they are doing their writing, they're not sounding robotic, trying to sell themselves. They had this thing that they said in this story. So let's say you're telling a story, and when you tell the story, you're giving like unique perspectives. You talk about your thought process. You talk about very personal things, and all that stuff combined, it really lets the admissions committee know who you are, how you think, and how you might fit into their class, rather than just like a copy and paste, cut and paste, cookie cutter pre-med that's just saying what the admissions committee wants them to say. So all I'm saying here is be authentic, tell your story, be yourself, and tell lots of stories. Another big piece of advice, which is pretty obvious, but a lot of people mess up on, I messed up on it a little bit when I was starting with my secondaries, is answer the damn question. Just answer the question how they asked it. Don't go beyond the question and talk all crazy and selling yourself in a way that doesn't answer the question or goes on and on after you answer the question. It just makes you look bad. So just answer the question. Other little pieces of advice that I can think of is kind of like I said before, go super in depth about who you are. The primary application was a general overview of who you are. That's kind of how I look at it. And then your secondaries is when you can really dig in deep with your stories and really showcasing your personality through storytelling, showing how, like, what makes you tick, how you view the world, how you think, and how you interact with other people. Really don't try and hold back. Be as vulnerable as you can, because the admissions committees are really going to like that, and you're going to see an authentic person, and it's just basically going to increase your chances of getting accepted. Tell stories, use specific examples, like let's say you were working as a medical assistant or a hospice volunteer or something, or a CNA, and you had one patient you really connected with, you really made an impact on the patient, or really made an impact on you, or it's just a good story to tell about something that actually happened. Really dig deep into your experiences and tell as many stories as you can. That's why I recommend, if you are just getting started out on this journey, or if you are already in this journey, really start writing about your experiences as they happen, or reflecting on them on a separate journal, so that you can have the content ready for these secondaries in the best quality that you can make it. You want to be constantly writing about your experiences on the back end, so that when it comes time for like interviews or primary or secondary stuff and applying to medical school, you have stuff to talk about and you've already thought it over. Examples of me talking about specifically who I am, I talked about, like, one question was, name one community you identify with. And then I said I identify with the vegan community and the vegan fitness community. Sounds super corny, but like on my second application cycle, I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to be completely authentic. And it worked out for me. So I just talked about that. Instead of holding back, I was authentic as possible. And I think it really worked in my favor. So like other like small tips before I go, like specific things, like the Why Us essay is very hard and very repetitive for some people. Just look at the school's website. Again, you really want to be taking your time with these secondaries, not taking too long, but you really want to put effort into it. So again, with the Why Us essay, you really want to look at every single school that you're applying to and pick something specific from the school's website, their online materials, or something you know about the school from another source, and talk about it and why it makes you interested in the school. Because you have to understand something, these medical schools get between like 10 and 15,000 plus applications a year, and it might make you stand out when you say, hey, I'm really interested in this little opportunity at your school. Hey, I like what this professor's research is doing in this like super hidden like link you found on their website. Maybe you find some super hidden link and it's some professor doing some cool research. I did that for the medical school I'm going to be attending, University of Miami. There was a professor on the website that I found. I had to click like a bunch of links. It was like 10 to 15 links. And I found a professor that was doing research on chronic diseases and metabolic diseases, things like heart disease, stuff I'm interested in, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, things like that. And it was very hard to find. It wasn't immediately on the website. So do some digging basically on the school's website is the point I'm trying to make when you answer the why us questions. Talk about specifics. Really try and sound interested in the school. I mean, I know everyone's applying to medical schools, 20, 30 plus medical schools, and it's really hard to sound authentic when you're looking at one school at a time, but you really need to try. Really try and find something about each school. And kind of all schools kind of say the same thing for like their mission statement as another thing you can look at to answer the why us questions. They all kind of sound the same, but still try to find something unique. Because every pre-med is going to say things like, I'm interested in your free clinic. I'm interested in your, in the fact that you love working with the community and you want to improve community health. I mean, no shit, this is a medical school. This is what they want to do. That's their mission. That's every medical school's mission pretty much. And every medical student, every pre-med when they're applying is going to say that. So try and set yourself apart a little bit by finding something unique about each school when you answer those why us essays. So basically my whole like piece of advice here is do your research on every school when you answer the why us questions. So that pretty much sums up this video. It's the second week of June and I just thought I'd drop a quick little video giving you guys advice on secondaries as somebody who's been accepted to medical school and who's gone through the process twice and has gone through so much research and advice taking from going through this whole process 2 years in a row. So I hope this helped. I hope you guys get your secondaries done and in on time. Last cycle I did, I think 45 secondaries or something like that. It was 43. It was 43 secondaries. And the cycle before that I did 27. So they're not fun. They suck. Which is why I recommend pre-writing a lot of these with templates and saving and cutting and pasting with the little boilerplate essays. But yeah, good luck, y'all. This is the time to get locked in and get into it. I hope you guys have a great time writing these secondaries, which I know you probably won't. But yeah, hopefully this video helps you. Have a good one.